Good morning, my dear students, and welcome back for your online English classes. In the previous class, we have done the reading of chapter 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. I hope you all have gone through the spellings, sentences, and everything, so that if those kinds of sentence or spellings will come in the exam, you people can be able to do. Today, I'll be reading 2.4, 3.1 and 3.2. So kindly go through the chapter while I'll read, because in the Google form, in the MCQs which you people are getting, from in between of the chapter only you people will get the questions. Okay? But for the grammatical part and for the activity sheets, you people have to learn from the book. So let's start. 2.4 Lucy Gray. This poem tells the tragic story of a little girl named Lucy. A storm was expected in the night, and her father sent her with a lantern to get her mother home. The storm came before its time, and Lucy lost her way in the snow. She was never found again. The poet says that the little girl's song can still be heard whistling in the wind. Wordsworth. Who is Wordsworth over here? The name of the poet is Williams Wordsworth. Okay? The name of the poet is Williams Wordsworth. So, Wordsworth wrote a number of Lucy poems which are among the finest in English literature. But nobody knows who this Lucy was. She was probably a creation of the poet's imagination. Let's start the poem. Oft I had heard of Lucy Gray, and when I crossed the wild, I chanced to see at break of day the solitary child. No mate, no comrade, Lucy knew. She dwelt on a white moor, the sweetest thing that ever grew beside a human door. You yet spy the fawn at play, the hare upon the green, but the sweet face of Lucy Gray will never more be seen. Tonight will be a stormy night, you to the town must go, and take a lantern child to light your mother through the snow. That, father, will I gladly do. 'Tis scarcely afternoon. The minster clock has just struck 2, and yonder is the moon. At this the father raised his hook and snapped a faggot band. He plied his work, and Lucy took the lantern in her hand. Not blither is the mountain row, with many a wanton stroke. Her feet disperse the powdery snow that rises up like smoke. The storm came before its time, she wandered up and down, and many a hill did Lucy climb, but never reached the town. The wretched parents all that night went shouting far and wide, but there was neither sound nor sight to serve them for a guide. At daybreak on a hill they stood that overlooked the moor, and thence they saw the bridge of wood a furlong from their door. They wept, and turning homeward cried, In heaven we all shall meet. When in the snow the mother spied the print of Lucy's feet. Then downwards from the steep hill's edge they traced the footmarks small, and through the broken hawthorn hedge, and by the long stone wall. And then an open field they crossed, the marks were still the same. They tracked them on, nor ever lost, and to the bridge they came. They followed from the snowy bank those footmarks one by one, into the middle of the plank, and further there were none. Yet some maintain that to this day she is a living child, that you may see sweet Lucy Gray upon the lonesome wild. Over rough and smooth she strips along, and never looks behind and sings a solitary song that whistles in the wind. Okay? So the name of the poem is Lucy Gray and the name of the poet is William Wordsworth. Next chapter 3.1 My Dog Marcus. Do you have a pet dog? What breed is it? What do you like most about it? For this, children, if you remember, I showed you my dog. Okay? I hope you all remember. So let's start. I too have a pet dog. It is a Saint Bernard. We call it Marcus. It is a huge, handsome dog, but quite lazy and stupid. Anyone who has met Marcus will not believe that he recently had an idea. It was certainly the first idea he has ever had, and I can't imagine how he got it. The idea had something to do with making life easy for Saint Bernards. It is Marcus' belief that a day should consist of 16 hours of sleep, 6 hours of rest, and 2 hours of intensive eating. However, Marcus is occasionally called on to work, if you could call it work. He is occasionally called to take a walk after breakfast as far as the nearest corner and back. A real dog would look forward to such a thing trembling in joy. But to Marcus, it was nothing less than slavery. His idea then was something like this. If I were deaf, I couldn't hear when they called me for my walk, and they wouldn't be able to move me because nothing can move me, so I will pretend to be deaf. One morning, Marcus put his plan into action. My wife, whose wife? The author's. Okay. My wife came to me with a disturbed look on her face. Poor Marcus has gone deaf, she exclaimed. Deaf? I cried. But he could hear perfectly well last night. I went into the kitchen and called him lovingly. Coming for a walk, Marcus? Marcus, like a perfect actor, gazed at me pathetically. It looked as though he was dying to hear what I was saying. After a good deal of shouting, we left him where he was. He rested his big head on its front paws and again went to sleep. And again went to sleep. We remained constantly worried about him. It took us a few days to notice that Marcus was only partly deaf. He could hear anything connected with food. One Sunday, I was carving a joint when a tiny scrap of meat slipped from the fork and dropped on the carpet. Although Marcus was asleep in the kitchen some distance away, he hurtled into the dining room and gulped it down. Hey, aren't you deaf? I said. Marcus' jaw and tail both dropped. He seemed to remember he was deaf. Not much later, he failed to hear 3 repeated commands to come out for a walk. But he leapt to his feet at the arrival of the butcher. Now we became pretty sure that he was only pretending to be deaf. In the end, my wife and I decided that Marcus had to be cured of his deafness. Marcus had gone deaf. We decided we would go silent. When Marcus was around, we would go through the actions of speaking, but would not say a word. At first, Marcus looked lazily puzzled, but soon he became really worried. Had he gone really deaf? The horrible part was, we might be talking about food. The thought of what he might be missing was real torture to him. As we mouthed silently at each other, Marcus would stare painfully into our faces, trying to lip read. He was now never called for meals, so it was doubtful if he was having 16 hours of real sleep out of the 24, and he worried himself down to half his weight. We kept this up for several days. Then we decided to restore Marcus' hearing. One morning, I said in a loud voice, "Come on, Marcus, time for your walk, boy." An expression of beautiful relief appeared over his vast face. So, he was not deaf at all. He bounded to his feet, he frisked to the gate like a lively pony. He joyously took one of the longest walks of his life, of about half a kilometer. Marcus was not troubled again with his deafness. Last chapter, which is going to come for your exam. 3.2 The Barber Talks. Barbers usually talk a lot. They love to talk and talk non-stop. While plying their razor and scissors, they go on relating their tales, in which the customer has little interest. The poor customer has to keep listening for fear of the sharp razor, which is all the time so near his neck. A busy newspaper reporter couldn't find time to have a shave for many days. Then one morning, he happened to pass by a barber shop and stepped in. There he found the chairs full of customers and had a mind to slip away. But the barber fixed his eyes upon him and said, "You are next." The reporter sank into a hard chair nailed to the wall. In a few moments, the customer in the chair got up and the reporter got that seat. "Haircut?" asked the barber. "Shave," said the reporter. The barber enveloped the reporter in a large cloth and with a careless hand spread a great brushed Swedish lather across his mouth. Then he began to talk. Some people have their dead shaved before burying them. Once I was sent for to shave a dead man. It was at 706 Pearl Street. Barbers don't much like a job of that kind, although they get $5 to $10 for this work. I started at about 9 at night and found the house quite easily. I had my razor, soap, and mug in a little case, which I use on such occasions. I knocked at the door, and an old man opened the door. His eye fell on my case. "So, you have come," he said. "Go upstairs. He is in the front room to your right. There's nobody with him. He hasn't any friends or relatives in this town. He rented the room only a week ago." "How long is it since this happened?" I asked. "About an hour," said the old man. I was glad of that because corpses always shave better before they get completely cold. I went into the room and turned up the lamp. The man was laid out on the bed. He was warm yet and had about a week's growth of beard on. I got to work and in about half an hour gave him a nice clean shave. With such a nice shave, the man would have felt fresh if he had been alive. I put my things back into the case, went downstairs, and saw the old man. "He is fixed up all right," I said. "Who is to pay?" "He gave me $30 for a money order to be sent to his mother yesterday," said the old man. "He gave me $30 for a money order to be sent to his brother yesterday," said the old man. "I shall pay your fee out of it." "How much?" $5, I said. The old man handed me a $5 note and I went home very well satisfied. Next day, continued the barber. There was some news. I heard that a man had died at 706 Pearl Street, and a little while before that, a man in the next house had taken poison. People in one house sent for a doctor, and those in the other sent for a barber. The funny part is that the doctor and I both made a mistake. We got into the wrong house. He went in to see the dead man. The family doctor there was just getting ready to leave. Now, this other doctor didn't waste any time. He got out his stomach pump, stuck it into the dead man's throat, and started pumping the poison out. All this time, I was busy shaving the man who had taken poison in the other house. And look at the funniest part of it all this. After the other doctor had pumped all the family doctor's medicine out of the dead man, he opened his eyes, raised himself up in bed, and asked for coffee. This made the family doctor mad. He got into a fight with the other doctor, and both fell down the stairs. And how about your man? Who had taken poison? Asked the reporter timidly. Him, said the barber, as he snatched off the cloth. He died, of course, but with one of the nicest shaves that ever a man had. As soon as the barber finished, the reporter made a rush for the door and fled away. Call again, shouted the barber at his back. I hope now all the 6 chapters are clear to you, and you know your portion which is going to come for midterm exam. From main book Learn Well 1.1 to 3.2, Grammar Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Activity Sheet 1, 2, 3 and 4. And for your subjective paper, Unseen Passage 5 marks, Question and Answers 9 marks. That question answers will be from chapter 1.1 to chapter 3.2, from anywhere I can give, and it will be the same question answers which you people have got as your notes. Okay, for question answers I will not give from in between of the chapter. It will be same as it is there in your notebooks or in your book. Next, 1 mark will be for your word meaning in written, or else for your poet's name, poem's name, and rest 5 marks is for your notice writing. Questions you people have already got for notice writing. For Unseen Passage also you got the example, but Unseen Passage and notice writing questions will be different for your exam. Format will be same. I hope you all understood. All the best for your exams. In the next class, you will be getting the practice paper through the Google form, so that you can practice and you can manage your time. Thank you, dear children.